Good afternoon. I'm John Bendish, and I'm here to speak on my dad on behalf. It works better if you don't read. But anyways, my dad's life passion was always the cowboy way of life. His family, cattle, horses, dogs, and in certain scenarios, not in that order. In the years of operating the historic Cannonball Ranch and the T-Bar Ranch, a lot of memories were made, stories were told, and lessons to be learned. And we're learning. One lesson I learned was the true meaning of wet saddle blankets. I asked my dad one day, how can I get a good horse like you got? He said, hard work, wet saddle blankets. Well, that stuck in my head. So the next morning, we go down to the tack room. My dad looks and he says, why is all this water underneath your saddle? Yep. I took the saddle blankets over to the water tank, dunked them, and it was pretty hard work for a little guy to get them wet saddle blankets back to that tack room. By God, I had wet saddle blankets, hard work, I got a good horse.
It's hard to summarize a great man and a great neighbor in a short period of time. Lots of stories about Arnold being a neighbor. And as a little kid, probably starting out in little rodeos and stuff in Cannonball and Fort Yates, Arnold was the first one to clearly see that I wasn't going to cut it as a bronc rider or a bull rider. So he introduced me to a rope. And as a little kid on, he'd help me with the groundwork and stuff. And as he kind of seen me progress with that, he asked me to join him in a roping up in Bismarck. So I got up to Bismarck there, and he told me just to bring whatever horse I got, the best minded one. And so I went up there, and we were riding around the arena, and he's giving me some pointers in the arena, and I was going to be heeling for him. And I said, well, what do you mean? And he goes, I entered me and you up already. And I thought, wow, that would have been nice to know. But so they called our name, and I get into heeling box, and Arnold turned a nice steer for me, and well, it ain't no Cinderella story. I missed. But the greatest thing that I've ever learned from that man is the afterwards of that. As we were walking, or he was running his steer down to the pen, he hollered at me. He said, you always follow your header down and help him get the steer out. And as we were walking back there, and he said, that's why I wanted you to rope with me. He said, I figured you were going to miss, but he said, every roping that you leave, he said, you leave with your head high. He said, if you catch them, he said, don't raise your head any higher than anybody else. And he said, if you miss, just keep your head up and be glad you were there, because next week you might miss them all, and the week after that, you might catch everything. So just keep your head up. Growing up with John and Arnold, and like I said, the only thing that separated us was the Cannonball River from the Cannonball Ranch, and just a super man and a great cowboy. I just learned so much for him. I grew a legacy as teaching my kids how to rope when they grew up. I found myself telling them everything that Arnold taught me. And it's a legacy. It's something I'll have to pass on to my kids and their kids. And that's what I think the Cowboy Hall of Fame is all about. It's putting people like him into it, and just the legacy. And Arnold's definitely a man that needs to be there, in my point, and it's just a story that I could go on with a few of them, but I know I'm going to run out of time, and I want to thank the committee for taking his nomination, and I hope you accept him into the Cowboy Hall of Fame. It's well deserved for him. He was a great man and neighbor. Thank you.